run through my soul. Bring me wisdom and peace. Run through all ages and all of life's stages. You bring me around to find my release. Run, river, run through the hill.
Hi, this is Jan Lewis. Welcome to be my guest. Today we have John Olszewski with us. I said it right. Welcome, John. He came in from Salem, Massachusetts. He has a book here called The Long, Dark Walk. This should be a movie. My personal journey with the world's worst killers. Okay, if you're skittish, turn us off right now because this is a fascinating book. First, John, welcome. How did you get interested in this type of thing?
It's just as I say in the book, from a young age, my first job was working in a library, my town library, and I just, for some reason, I gravitated to the true crime section. I started reading true crime novels, and it's just fascinated me from then on. I just wanted to get more involved and learn more.
Yeah, I've had people, I like true crime, and I had people along the years say, how can you read that? I'm like, well, I think it's because I've got a curiosity. And now he's been like a detective, right? You've done that type of thing.
I've done some stuff on my own, yeah. I mean, I've worked in the prison system, and I've kind of...
Well, we're going to talk about a lot. You had decided that you would get a master's degree in counseling psychology.
Mm-hmm.
So you do counseling now.
Yes. Right?
Now, there's another thing. Also, he said he taught his first class at North Shore Community College. The class was Mind of a Killer. I had so much information to use, and more kept coming. I wonder what the parents of your students thought. You're learning what? The Mind of a Killer? How did you do that?
You'd be surprised how many people want to take a class like that. A lot of the colleges now have classes on profiling and some on serial homicide. There's a couple universities, I can't remember where offhand, but I've checked online to see. And there's a few that specifically have classes, just serial homicide and stuff like that. So there's definitely an interest for it.
This is the cover. Take a look at this. The Long, Dark Walk with a ton of mail and the prison cells on each side. Did you design that?
I didn't come up with the mail idea, but the rest of it was my idea. I wanted to have the long hallway with all the cells on both sides.
The Long, Dark Walk. Well, now, you interviewed some people. You can't go into their cell, so you'd have to meet them in a secure place, right?
Well, when I was working in the prison system, I mean, I'd talk to some, do groups with some we had to go on the tier. They weren't even allowed off the unit.
Now, how long ago, when did you start doing this?
I think it was 1994. I was in college, like second year maybe.
And how did you reach the warden and say, I want to come in and do an interview?
Well, I started writing them. That was the first step. I just had to come up with somebody I wanted to write. I had always wanted to write John Wayne Gacy or Jeffrey Dahmer, but that year they were both, Gacy was executed and Jeffrey was murdered in prison, so I kind of had to find somebody else.
Now, people have heard of the Fatal Attraction murderess, Carolyn Worms. Tell us that story.
She's free now. What? Which is scary. She just got released.
How long was she in there for?
I want to say, had to be probably 20 years. But yeah, they based the movie Fatal Attraction on her. When I wrote her, I just got a form letter the first time, basically asking for money. So then I wrote back. I basically said, how do you expect me to give you money? I haven't even talked to you, and you just want money. So then she actually wrote a letter the second time, but basically said, hi, sorry, can I still have money?
So what, you paid her to do? No.
I didn't pay her. That was the end of our exchange.
That was it?
Yeah, just those
Is
two
that
letters.
what you did with a lot of the other ones? You would pay to meet with them, or they would pay you?
No, I wouldn't pay them. I'm trying not to glorify it, so, I mean, I would just write them. Some of them I have helped with a few dollars to help them write. A lot of them don't have money, so I would, give them $5 or $10 just for paper and envelopes and postage.
What was the scariest part of all this? I would think actually, you have to go in and take out, you have to be searched.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes kind of commonplace after a while, but the first time you go in a prison, it's definitely a scary thing when you have cells closed behind you.
And you'd actually probably interview with them in one of those rooms, and the thing goes shuts, right? But there's a guard out front, right there.
Yeah.
And so they were amenable to this idea. They didn't mind having stories done about them.
Most of them don't. They love the attention.
Well, yeah. I think they most of them are still there.
Yeah, there's been a few that have died over the years. One of the ones I just recently was corresponding with was just executed last
Who was
Thursday.
that?
Gary Ray Bowles. There's a couple pictures of him in there.
Gary, where was he?
Florida.
You traveled to...
No, I haven't gone to visit a lot of them. I've talked with some on the phone. A lot of the ones I met was when I was working in the correctional system. I used to work at Shirley Max. I was at Walpole.
They just had a problem up at Shirley.
They always had problems
What
at
the heck?
Shirley.
Was it some sort of what was it, a riot?
A riot, yep.
At Shirley?
Yep.
So you were a guard?
No, I was a counselor, general population counselor. That was my title there.
So you've really, counseling is your thing.
It is, yes.
Okay, this is fantastic. We're talking with John Olszewski, and he has written the book, The Long Dark Walk, My Personal Journey with the World's Worst Killers. Now, this is a good book, believe me. There'll be a copy downstairs, and don't read it at night. No, tell us, I can't remember everybody. Give us some stories of the people you've done stories about. Gacy, you did Gacy.
Gacy was the one that fascinated me the most. Unfortunately, as I said, he was executed, so I didn't get a chance to write him, but I do have some letters that he wrote to other people. I have 3 letters that he wrote to other people. They actually kind of disappointed me a little bit because it didn't give so much of an insight into his personality as I had hoped, but you kind of see his cunning side because he's negotiating deals with these people to sell his artwork and things like that, so you can kind of see that part of him, but not so much the killer.
What was that lady? Do you ever watch, it's fun, Ghost Adventures?
Occasionally.
All right, there is a true place. There's a woman who, she'd taken boarders. What is her name?
Oh, Dorothy Puente.
Dorothy Puente, and she would take in boarders and then kill them.
Yep.
She wanted their Social Security money, and she buried them in the yard. Yep. So did you ever do I don't remember.
I never wrote her, no. I think she just passed away, too, last year or the year before.
I hope they never let her out.
No.
I mean, can you imagine going to get a room in an inn and you're not going to be here long?
I'd be surprised. There's a few people that have used that approach before.
What were some of the more upsetting ones? There was John Gacy you just mentioned. Mm-hmm. He was a guy that dressed as a clown.
Yep.
He also had a respectable job in town. What did he do?
Gacy, it's always fascinated me the most too. Ted Bundy gets kind of all the attention, saying how charming he was and believable, that no one would expect that from him. Mm. But Gacy was just as charming, but Gacy's not as handsome as Ted Bundy, so he doesn't get the acclaim for that. But Gacy was so charming and manipulative. There's the famous picture when Jimmy Carter was president that Gacy got close enough to him where he met Rosalind Carter, and there's a picture of the two of them standing next to each other. So this is basically, at that time, the world's worst serial killer in the history, and he was that charming and believable that he got to get close to the president's wife.
I forgot, what event was it that they got to stand together?
I'm not sure what event it was. It was a fundraiser. He did all kinds of things for charity, fundraising.
He was like 2 different people.
He was.
Do you think, for all the profiling that you've done, do they tend to have 2 different sides?
Multiple personalities, it's such a rare thing. I believe. I've seen one in person, I believe, in my life. Mm-hmm. I'm not a firm believer where you see things like Sybil, where somebody has 10 different personalities and a guy pretending to be a woman. I kind of find that a little hard to believe, even with all the education I have, but I do believe that you could have a split where it's just the 2 personalities. Someone like a Gacy, they can be married, have a wife, have kids, which they truly love. Yeah. They'll kiss them, tuck the kids in.
I see the picture. He had a whole family.
Yep. They can truly love them, kiss them, tuck them in at night, and then they go out in the street and torture somebody, kill them, and come back and kiss the wife.
What happened to his family after they found out that this guy was, horrendous?
It's tough on the families. He had a sister he was very close with, and I know she was visiting him for a while, but it's a lot of families of serial killers have to go into hiding. They have to change their name. It's because a lot of people blame them for it.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Now, who was Gerald Parker, the bedroom basher? Who was that?
It was in California. He would go in, as the name says, and bash women. I think it was with a hammer while they were sleeping. He's not as well a well-known one.
I hadn't heard of him.
No, he's not.
Convicted of 6 murders. And
there's so many out there that people are unaware of. We only really read about the couple big names, Gacy, the Bundys. But for every big name you hear, there's probably 30 that you haven't heard of.
What's that TV show? They got a lot of them now.
Criminal Minds.
Yeah. Oh, something. I used to love that show.
It went too long. It's still going.
Well,
I think.
I love it. It's what happened was it got a little too intense for me. I mean, some of the stuff.
Yeah.
And I loved it for quite a while, but I'm like, yeah, I'm leaving this show feeling awful. There's another one too. What do you call it? Law and Order SUV.
Yep.
I love that one. Now that one's a little bit easier and I don't know. Oh God.
The Criminal Minds, they base a lot of their cases off of real cases involving killers.
Yeah.
The only thing that's unrealistic, I always say it about Criminal Minds, is there's no 20-year-old profilers.
Yeah.
Gideon and Hotch are the realistic ones. You really got to be late 40s, 50 before you get to that point. So there's no 20-year-old criminal
But
profiles.
I like that kid. What's his name?
Well, that's why they do it. It's for television.
What is his name on the show? I forgot. Oh.
I can't.
And then that crazy girl with the blonde hair, and she does all
that. You would never see that in the FBI either. You can have pink hair. And
all right, who was Todd Rizzo?
He was Connecticut. He's on. I think he's still on death row in Connecticut. He had killed a young child. I think he went in the Marines. I'm not sure if they booted him out. I can't remember now. But yeah, he was young. He was only about 18 when he killed another young child. Just he wanted to kind of...
We are just touching the surface of what is in his book, The Long Dark Walk. True story of his going through this and writing it. Now, how can they get a hold of your book?
Right now, I'm still trying to get it on Amazon. Amazon's not easy to deal with these days. They have a lot of screening, so I'm still waiting to hear back from them. Right now, I have an email on the book, which of course you don't have access to that, but I will tell you what the email is. And you can feel free to email me. I can send copies to anybody. The email is SK Psych Evaluator, PSYCHE Eval LUATOR, and that's at AOL.com. It's SK Psychevaluator.com.
Say that quick. Okay.
SK Psych Evaluator.
Natasha Cornett, a female mass killer. What happened with her?
She was part of a cult. They were a kind of a gothic vampire cult. And there was a couple of them involved, and they basically kidnapped a family while they were en route down to Louisiana. And they killed the family, the child. One child survived, but they killed the parents and another child.
I noticed that you mentioned the bipolar, that she had said to have been diagnosed with that. In your profiling, do you find that most of these serial killers, murderers, have got some sort of a mental disorder, or are they just plain psychopathic?
A lot of them have mental disorders. What I tried to do with this book, not only do I, tell my experiences, but at the end I did a lot of research with the ones that I actually wrote and communicated with. I came up with a series of backgrounds. I came up with 10 of them, one of which is mental illnesses. So in the back of the book, I kind of have lists for the people that I communicated with. If they fit in any of those categories, I have mental illness, medical issues, sexual abuse, physical abuse, things like that. And I add them up, see what the percentage was of the ones I communicated with had, those different categories. And then I also, how many of them had multiple categories.
He's even got a picture of now. Who was Jermaine Jones?
And she's another one that is on the verge of being released. She was in Texas. She was a nurse that worked in the infant ward, and she was convicted of a couple murders, but they suspect she could have killed 20, 30, even 40 kids over the years.
How long ago was this?
In the probably early 80s.
Well, no, getting back to Gacy for a minute, he went just for the boys, right?
Gacy did, yes. Most people have hate to say it, a type, they usually stay within their type. Gacy, it was younger men. He'd kill a few in the late teens, but he tended to or mid-teens was his type.
Oh,
it's some of it's disturbing to say, but...
John, when you were in doing counseling in a prison, it must, you must see things. You must have seen things there that you're like, whoops, This is a red flag they're missing. What was that like?
It's difficult. I'm not in the prisons now. It's a very difficult job to work in field, just because you have your hands tied behind your back with a lot, you might want to do something, you might think something, but basically the prison has the last call on everything, and a lot of times they don't really care about rehabilitating people. They don't really care what you think their diagnosis is. You're only there because they have to let you be there, but in terms of going forward with that, they really don't want to.
Well, the problem too, though, is some of the guys. If this person, let's say you saw that this person is a real threat, you've got to listen to me. They're risking the death of other inmates.
They are.
Did you ever see it? Ever see something like that?
Violent acts? Oh, yes.
And did you see it coming, or you knew something was off?
Oh, yeah. You can, when you work in that type of field, even now, I work in rehabilitation centers and stuff, and you get a lot of people that have done jail time, and you can always tell when you've been in the field long enough, there'll be something in the air, something's going to go down. You can just feel tension, and
you can tell when they're playing you, too.
Oh,
right?
Oh, yeah.
Do you ever tell them right off the bat, you're playing me, stop it?
I do sometimes. Sometimes
No.
I let them think they're getting over on me, and most of the time they know if they're really good, they know if you're buying it or if you're not. So just as well as you think you're doing it, they're doing it back to you. And they'll stop if they know that you're not buying it.
They'll stop, yeah.
Some of them.
They might figure it out that this guy's too smart. He knows what I'm doing. What do you do with a prisoner who just can't adjust to, I don't know how many of us could even adjust to being in a cell. Somebody's just been brought in, maybe a young guy in his 20s, and he is going bananas. How do you hold it? Medication? Can you?
A lot of times that's what they do, yeah. A lot of prisons over-medicate because they want the prisoners calm, not a risk for staff, so basically they do. It's just like you heard the old saying in the day, the Thorazine shuffle, that used to be for mental institutions, but the prison system is just like that. They do the same thing. They want everybody calm and complacent.
I heard that long ago, I don't know if they're still doing it, it was at Bridgewater State. It was a mental hospital.
Yeah.
It's a criminally insane, right? They were Thorazine shuffling a lot of people. Have you ever been over there?
I've been by it. I haven't been in that one.
You haven't been?
Yeah.
How about the one in Walpole, Cedar Junction?
I was in there. I worked there for a little bit. The company I worked for had me at Shirley Max full-time, but occasionally they would send me down to Walpole. They had wanted to transfer the position there, so I was in Walpole when it was a maximum. Now it's just a medium.
Oh, okay. All right, so in Massachusetts, which is the max?
Shirley. There's a Shirley Max and there's a Shirley Medium. They're right next to each other.
Right next. He's not saying that he was a prisoner. Okay, I'll get this straight. This is an author who did his research on serial killers. True story. John Olszewski and The Long Dark Walk. And one more time, John, how can they get a hold of your book or you?
Right now, it's the best way to get hold of it would be to email me personally. My email is skpsychevaluator. SK is for serial killer, and then Psych Evaluator, PSYCHEL, UATOR, and that's at AOL.com. I have to always say it out.
There you go. Did you ever think, it mentions the FBI, you figured
Yes.
you probably wouldn't eventually get to that point, but do you still want to do that?
Oh, I would love it, but it's
why
too
not?
late in the game
Is
now.
it too late? You're so young.
That's so hard. What I'd love to do is the profiling, but literally there's no more than 10 people at a time in the behavior science unit, so the odds of getting that are just...
How about like the different towns with their police stations? Wouldn't they love to have a profiler?
They would, but they want you to be on the police force. Last I knew, there was only 2 profilers that are private, that they're not working for law enforcement. One's actually in New Hampshire and the other's in California, I think. But they're like the only 2 that are private.
But is it very hard to deal with somebody who, a young kid, maybe he's put in a cell and he comes to you and he's a wreck? How do you tell the kid, hey, you're going to have to adjust?
Delicately. I mean, there's no easy solution. Some people, you can tell them all you want, but their mental makeup, they're not going to take it. And that's why Massachusetts actually had, I'm pretty sure they probably still do, but they had the highest rate per capita for suicides of the prison system throughout the whole country.
What do you think people are going to be interested in this? Epstein, the one that just happened?
I have to watch what I say with those things, but I basically think the prison allowed that to happen. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, now they're saying, well, the coverage wasn't good enough.
The man had attempted suicide the week before, so he should have been on 24-hour suicide watch, and they didn't do it because they wanted it to happen. So
We'll find out maybe someday who set this up.
you probably never will.
You don't think so?
No.
You don't think so? Do you think it was a political setup?
It very well could be. Whitey Bulger was a setup. That was set up to happen.
John, when they brought him down there, down south,
Yep.
first of all, why did they move him down there?
Because it was a setup. They did it in the middle of the night. They did it in the... They already knew he was coming there. He was dead within hours of getting there because obviously they knew he was coming, so it wasn't a secret.
But isn't the warden supposed to be at least somewhat protective of who comes in?
Yeah.
Or was he amenable to this?
He's
Oh my
yeah.
God! Can you imagine being so?
Prison system is a... People don't understand because you're behind bars. Basically, it's a different world. And before something bad can happen, but before the public finds out, they have to tell you so they can change everything, fix everything, clean up everything. And
Well, but it made me. I'm sure I'm not the only one very curious as to why are they moving him down there? Why did you think that they had to move him down there just to have him executed by someone?
so that they wouldn't be responsible here. They don't want to take the blame, so they send him down there.
But that far down the coast? I don't get it. Why not Rhode Island or Washington?
Somebody owed somebody a favor.
Oh!
I'm not 100%
You see,
sure.
my head doesn't work
I'm
that
a
way.
conspiracy theorist, so
Oh my! Do you think Whitey had any idea?
probably.
Really?
Probably. When you're doing it in the middle of the night like that, he was probably aware this probably isn't going to be a good outcome.
My God. We're talking with John Olszewski, and he wrote the book The Long, Dark Walk. And believe me, this is dark. Now, Chad Curtis, a former professional baseball player, he was accused of sexually assaulting 3 underage girls over in Michigan. What happened with this guy? Why did he go bonkers? What happened to him?
I only exchanged one letter with him. He never actually answered my second letter. He still has his wife and family still support him. He denies it that it happened. It's, it is hard to give an opinion. I mean, being in this field, I have seen some innocent people behind bars, so it's like I try not to judge too much. That was, he had a couple girls that the high school he was working at after he retired from baseball. Accused him of sexual assault, touching, and this, and I mean, it's kind of a he said, she said, so you don't know if they were out to get money. I mean, he could have very well did it.
As a counselor, John, do you sort of see the ones who get in there for sexual assaults and all that stuff? Do you think that there's truth in the fact that a lot of them were sexually assaulted as kids and they're acting out now?
A lot of them were, yeah, definitely.
What's this fire setting profile?
The McDonald Triad, it's a series, was created by a psychiatrist, and he came up with this philosophy, and there is a lot of truth to it, of 3 warning signs that you would look for in a young person that could possibly lead them to a life of crime or, becoming a sociopath or a psychopath. And one of them is there's fire setting, cruelty to animals, and bedwetting.
What if one of them is just one? I mean, like just fire setting.
Well,
Get over it.
It's nothing is foolproof because there's serial killers that didn't have any of the 3, but then there's other serial killers that have all 3. There's some that have 1, there's some that have 2. I made it a point as aware that I was, if I put it in there, if I knew they fit into any of those 3.
Yeah. Now, he's got the period, Gary Ray Bowles. Who is Gary?
Gary was one of the ones I was recently corresponding with. There's almost a full chapter on him in there. There's a few pictures, and he was actually just executed last Thursday, so he was only the second one that I was actively writing while they were executed. The other was Michael Ross, which is in Connecticut, which is New England's only execution in the last 50, 60 years.
So Gary actually had been writing to you?
He was. I had just received a letter the week before.
What does that make you feel like when, oh my God, the person's gone?
It's kind of tough, people might think I'm strange, but I did feel kind of sad that day. I mean, I do get to know these people, a different side of them from the side that the public's aware of. So it did kind of, sting a little bit.
All right, this freeway killer dude, William Bonin. What was that all about? That was in 1994, right?
That was, yeah. He was executed. Yeah, I have a letter from 2 letters, I think, from him. I didn't get to write him, but I do have letters that he wrote to other people. that was when California was under siege in the early 80s, late 70s with serial killers, and he was one of the ones around that time. He would recruit other boys to help him procure young men, and then he would kill them. He was a homosexual killer.
The freeway killer. So he was the one out there
Dumping them on the... No, he was kidnapping. He was dumping the bodies on the freeway.
Oh, dear God. Oh, and moving on, the hog trail killer.
Conahan, that was in Florida. He was homosexual as well. He was killing men. He was leaving them in the hog trails. That's what they called them in the area.
It doesn't make sense. He was a homosexual Navy veteran working as a nurse. Why would he be killing men? Makes no sense. Angry at what happened to him, maybe as a kid.
Possibly.
Do you think that leads to bisexual and homosexual if the young man or woman was accosted as a kid? It's one way or the other.
Everybody's different. People react differently to things. Some people get molested. Yeah, it very well could lead them, if it was a prolonged period of time they were molested, that would be the only sexual experience they would know. And after a while, they might come to enjoy it, depending if it was a non-violent, more coerced action, they might come to enjoy it, and then they might believe themselves to be homosexual.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that.
No.
I don't think a lot, especially the boys, I don't think they get it. It doesn't mean just because you were somebody... you were abused, let's put it that way, it wasn't your fault. Oh, well, I must be... And get that out of a guy's head. I have heard that that's really tough.
It is, yeah. Guys, it's the man thing, a macho thing. No guy, it's very seldom do men want to admit that they were molested, because it makes, they feel like they were weak. Why did they let it happen? And obviously there's nothing you can do if you're a young child and it's a grown-up doing it to you. It's
nothing to do with it. You were just, unfortunately, you were there. We have got to close, but again, John Olszewski, my personal journey with the world's worst killers, The Long Dark Walk. I suggest you pick it up, keep the light on. You go downstairs, find a copy in the Upton Library, and you can also contact John, and maybe he will come and do a presentation.
I'd love to.
Book signing, get him out there. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me here.
All right, we'll see you next time. I'll be my guest.